So what is self-compassion? Surprisingly, Merriam-Webster's does not have a definition for self-compassion. However, they define compassion as a sympathetic consciousness of others' distress together with a desire to alleviate it. So if we were to actually turn this on ourselves, it would mean that we would have an intimate understanding of our own pain, along with a strong desire and intent to bring comfort and healing to ourselves. Although that may sound simple, for those who have found the best way forward as putting your head down and moving through life with determination only, this often means a strong intent to suppress any desires to slow down and bring comfort to oneself, as this would appear to take one off track of where they need to be and where they feel they need to go. Furthermore, many people like me may have had a self-limiting or somewhat flawed philosophy passed down to them almost as a life mantra. It was passed down to me from all of my family before me, who had an exceptionally strong work ethic that appeared to be completely necessary for survival. Those generations of family before me were hardworking coal miners and farmers who worked diligently night and day to feed their families. So when it came to topics of work, there was never discussion of happiness, well-being, or greater meaning. As with many, the meaning of success simply meant completion of a task that yielded money to survive. And to be very honest with you, I have learned this way of thinking and way of being very well, almost as an imprint on my soul. It became what felt like the singular thing that contributed to my ability to meet and exceed goals that I had set for myself. I imagine it was for this very reason why I never gave much thought to the idea of self-compassion, because my very way of being that led in my mind to what my definition of success had been was the very opposite of self-compassion. It was truly denying myself and even sometimes ridiculing and internally berating myself if an outcome didn't turn out the way I had hoped or planned. To me, even the negative dialogue that I entertained in my mind due to perceived failures would become my greatest motivator. And if you're like me, you're still thinking to yourself, as long as you get the job done and can get the outcome that you had planned for yourself, then what could be so inherently wrong with this way of being? Well, someone who hasn't lived this way for the greater portion of their life would not be able to answer that question very well. But I've since learned a new way of being that has allowed me to teach and live a way of authentically honoring all parts of myself and achieve meaningful goals. But I would have to say that the greatest benefit of this journey is that the inward reflection allows for a connection to a higher self that provides insight, authenticity, and a way of living that provides deep meaning for your own life and a greater connection of your life to others. And I believe that these are all necessary components to a fully well-lived life. Although I feel that there are many, and maybe even a majority, who came onto this earth intuitively knowing how to live meaningfully, there are many others like myself who existed fully on determination, drive, and self-sacrifice without any thought of how we were feeling along the way. All that mattered was that we arrived at a goal. I now wonder what life would have looked like if I had paused and consulted my inner self, even intermittently along the way. I often wonder how much happiness and joy I may have missed that was meant to be mine. But my head was too buried in the sand, trying not to perceive the frequent distress of constant, persistent determination. But the good news is, and what I'm here to share with you today, is that there is a much better way to approach life, more fully, more intimately, more meaningfully, more authentically, and more connected to others. One of the leading researchers in self-compassion is Dr. Kristin Neff. She describes self-compassion as, instead of mercilessly judging and criticizing yourself for various inadequacies or shortcomings, self-compassion means you are kind and understanding when confronted with personal failings. After all, whoever said you were supposed to be perfect? You may try to change in ways that allow you to be more happy and healthy, but this is done because you care about yourself, not because you are worthless or unacceptable as you are. Perhaps most importantly, having compassion for yourself means that you honor and accept your humanness. Things will not always go the way you want them to. You will encounter frustrations. Losses will occur. You will make mistakes, bump up against your limitations, fall short of your ideals. This is the human condition, a reality shared by all of us. The more you open your heart to this reality, instead of constantly fighting against it, the more you will be able to feel compassion for yourself and all your fellow humans in the experience of life. Through her research, Dr. Neff has identified that self-compassion has 3 core elements. These are self-kindness, common humanity, and mindfulness. So how do each of these apply to how we can learn to have more balanced dialogue with ourselves? In the area of self-kindness, we would practice treating ourselves with unconditional care and support when we're going through a hard time, instead of judging ourselves harshly, as many of us often do. Treating ourselves with warmth and patience as we would a friend going through a challenging time can help to build ourselves up and provide us with the strength to more quickly move through the tough times. How we would practice common humanity would be to recognize that we are part of a much larger consciousness, and we are all going through this human experience together. This helps us to see that we are not alone in our suffering. I personally like to think to myself that there probably isn't a human being alive who hasn't already felt and dealt with the same feeling that I am experiencing. This also allows us to feel great empathy for others when we can feel it for ourselves. When we see ourselves as isolated or separate from others, we can feel very alone, and this increases our despair. However, when we see ourselves as connected to a greater humanity that feels as we do, and acts as we do and forgives as we do, we feel less alone and more balanced and accepting of our own experiences. We judge ourselves less and we forgive ourselves more. When we think of applying the third component of self-compassion, mindfulness, this means that we allow ourselves to be aware of what we are feeling without judgment. We are not attempting to avoid how we feel or acting out in anger or shoving it down somewhere inside of us. We learn how to experience the feeling while telling ourselves that we can safely sit with this feeling and acknowledge how we feel without reacting to it. For me, it helps to try to find words to describe what I'm feeling in the moment. Is it anger at myself? Is it embarrassment? Or a huge one for me is berating myself for the perception of making a mistake. Often we can over-exaggerate our own emotions and ruminate on the situation so much that it is no longer an accurate representation of what was initially so upsetting. Being able to mindfully sit with these feelings without judgment helps us to remain more balanced and allows us to view our own thoughts with more curiosity and openness rather than judgment and despair. As I see in my clinical work every day, the more alone, isolated, and desperate that a person feels, the more they are likely to feel hopeless that things can get better for them. These feelings can lead to thoughts of not wanting to live any longer and has led to suicide and suicide attempts. In my daily clinic work, I work with people who may have never learned how to be kind to themselves. They have never learned how to have a conversation with themselves that involves kindness, empathy, or forgiveness. But by that point, they may have already attempted to end their life. If they live through it, that is where our work begins. We begin to work on how to change the dialogue that exists within their minds that up until this point only allowed for the anger and hatred that they have for themselves. We work day by day, moment by moment, until they can understand how their lack of kindness, belief of their separateness, and inability to forgive themselves for some perceived mistake has led them to this place of hopelessness. Lives change when we can change our relationship with ourselves. As we have just reviewed the three elements of self-compassion, kindness, common humanity, and mindful awareness, I would ask you to consider one more component that I personally believe is involved in learning to have a gentler and more loving conversation with ourselves. I would add that learning to sit with the emotions and feelings of vulnerability is an important part of changing our inner dialogue. So what does it mean to be vulnerable? Oprah Winfrey describes it as being willing to express the truth no matter what, the truth of who you are, the essence at your core of what you're feeling at any given moment. It's being able to open up your soul so that others can see their soul in yours. I believe that it is learning to be able to sit with the truth of who you are and what you are feeling in a place of acceptance, even when it feels unacceptable to you in the moment, or if you don't know the outcome. Learning how to be vulnerable means learning how to accept yourself as you are. And it is only from that place that we can grow and change if we feel called to do so. But it also means the ability to let ourselves be really seen in the world, which allows us to love with our whole hearts, even when there's no guarantee at the end. So let's talk a little bit more about how we can change the dialogue with ourselves. I truly believe, as Dr. Wayne Dyer does, that when we change the way we look at things, the things we look at change. So that statement innately gives us more power in the equation to make a choice about how we want to think in any given moment. Let's say that I feel I made a terrible decision about something that I truly regret, and I spend my days berating myself for it. My sleep is going to be disturbed. My mood is going to go down. My interactions with others might be negative or solely focused on my perceived negative choice. Essentially, if it's bad enough and I can't let it go, all areas of my life can be negatively affected. Even my health can be affected. As our stress levels increase, cortisol increases, and our levels of inflammation in our body go up substantially. When this cascade happens, it can become the foundation for all illnesses to occur. If we do this over and over and over, we are more likely to become physically and emotionally unwell to degrees that can range from mild to severe. As I mentioned, I work with suicidal people every day. And what I can tell you for certain is that their underlying health is nearly always affected to some degree. When lack of self-compassion and lack of self-care becomes chronic, health is nearly always affected in many devastating ways. However, what I have learned for myself and for my clients is that we can learn to control our own nervous system to downregulate the stress response in relation to some perceived problem. For me, I have a very intense nervous system. So with the slightest perturbation, I can feel anxiety build quickly. This isn't necessarily a bad thing once you learn how to control it, because that initial feeling can become your first indication that something is wrong, alerting you to address it before it becomes more intense. I, like many, often feel like we are often fighting against our own physiology. And this can change in positive ways when we learn how to calm our nervous system. So let me show you a graphic of what is happening in your body when you feel intense emotion or stress and how it can lead to impaired health over time. When we are in states of stress, our sympathetic nervous system becomes triggered to act in a fight or flight response. This can be triggered by emotions or physical dangers in an attempt to help ready us and ready ourselves to be able to flee from danger. So what happens is that our brain detects something is not normal, and the brain deciphers if it is a threat or not. The body can experience these emotions as a threat, which leads to activation of the sympathetic nervous system and responds by releasing adrenaline and cortisol, which then have downstream effects on all of our organs. This leads to an increase in breathing, heart rate, blood pressure, production of glucose, and increase in blood sugar and decreased ability to digest foods. This activation continues until the body perceives that the threat is over. So I imagine you can see how chronic stress or continued lack of self-care or compassion can lead to an overly stimulated nervous system and always feeling on edge. Over the long term, all major body systems are affected, which can lead to serious illness and disease. For example, this can lead to anxiety, depression, brain fog, high blood pressure, heart attack or stroke, inflammation and pain throughout the body, impaired immune system, problems with hair and skin, gastrointestinal problems, and even impaired fertility, just to name a few. So how has the chronic stress of the COVID-19 pandemic affected our health and well-being? The COVID-19 pandemic has caused skyrocketing rates of depression, anxiety, substance abuse, and rates of suicide. Several surveys, including those collected by the Centers for Disease Control, have shown substantial increases in self-reported behavioral health symptoms. According to one CDC report, which surveyed adults across the US in late June of 2020, 31% of respondents reported symptoms of anxiety or depression. 13% reported having started or increased substance use. 26% reported stress-related symptoms, and 11% reported having serious thoughts of suicide in the past 30 days. These numbers are nearly double the rates that we would have expected before the COVID-19 pandemic. As in prior studies, this survey showed that risk factors for reporting anxiety symptoms or suicidal ideation included food insufficiency, financial concerns, and loneliness. If there is one thing we know for sure, it's that when life gets hard, we need better ways of taking care of ourselves, loving ourselves, and aligning with the highest part of ourselves that can lead us to a greater level of peace and certainty in uncertain times. There are many things that I had to learn to begin to practice self-compassion. One of the first things that I had to learn conceptually was to begin to tune into my inner knowing, that highest part of myself that knows what is best, what is for my highest good. If we can begin to understand that there is a way of being that allows both happiness and purpose, then we can begin to soften our hardcore determination and transmute that into purpose and meaning. For example, in every task before me, I have a choice. Do I want to just hammer this out without thought? Or can I consult my inner being and see if there is a way that I can use this task to bring meaning and purpose to both myself and others? If you feel that you've made an error of some sort, stop the harsh self-criticism and find a balance with understanding that the only way to truly move forward in life is to accept that the feelings that we feel when we act are simply guideposts to inform us as to what is the way forward toward our greatest happiness. If we do something that produces a result that doesn't feel right, we can strive to examine that action and result without judgment, and perhaps even feel that the experience helped us to see with better clarity what we do want. When we experience what we don't want, it helps us to better understand what we do want. Some people are often even able to get to a point of understanding that there is no such thing as failure, only results. And as we live each day making choices, life provides us with many experiences that help us to better discern and refine what we want for our lives. Once we can begin to experience life as a playground of experiences that is working to help us move toward our purpose and happiness, we begin to look less at experiences as being negative or positive, but rather just simply experiences that clear the lens for what we want more of in our lives. Self-compassion also means knowing when we need to slow down and give ourselves a break. I can only speak of this because I have struggled many times in this area due to my own beliefs that I just need to keep going and going and going. However, this mentality only led me to a place of being unwell and less able to help those that I believed I worked so hard to help. So when we take the time to slow down and learn to embrace doing things that fill us up, then self-care becomes the path to wellness again. In my new journey of wellness and self-compassion, I have found many things that help me to recharge. Going for massages was one of the main things that helped me to slow down and recharge. And there is even research that has identified the benefits of massage. One study published in the International Journal of Neuroscience found that serotonin increased an average of 28%, and dopamine levels increased 31% following massage therapy. These neurological changes may explain why people with depression and anxiety who receive massage treatments report decreased symptoms. Also, massage can be an effective way to reduce cortisol levels from stress to bring your body back to hormonal equilibrium. According to a series of studies reviewed by the Touch Research Institute at the University of Miami School of Medicine, cortisol levels fell by up to 53% among subjects with depression or stress problems immediately following massage therapy. Travel can provide an excellent opportunity for renewal, as many people benefit from removing themselves from the environments that produce the stress in their lives. New surroundings also provide new perspective, which can be extremely beneficial to you, especially if you're contemplating major changes in your life. I truly believe that we cannot solve major problems in our lives with the same mind that created them. So travel and getting away often provides the time, space, and perspective to see a problem through new eyes before making a major decision. If you can't travel right now due to COVID, try walking in nature or just simply walking around your neighborhood. Movement in all forms can help us to rebalance our nervous system. The research on the benefits of exercise and movement on increasing well-being are extensive. Even 5 minutes of movement has been shown to have beneficial effects on our mood and mental state. And when we are trying to find ways to be kinder to ourselves, the neurochemicals that exercise provides can help us to do this. It also helps protect us from all of the negative effects of stress on our bodies that we discussed earlier. Meditation is a major game changer when it comes to self-compassion and awareness and acceptance of what is. It allows us to sit in awareness without judgment and simply notice how we feel and allow the feelings of acceptance of self and situation to flow. Research has shown that it can lower the stress response as well as improve focus on the present and reduce worry and negative ruminations. If you are unfamiliar with meditation, it may seem odd or uncomfortable at first, especially if sitting quietly alone in silence is something that's hard for you. When I first began, all that I could think of was my list of all the things that I needed to do besides sitting there at that time. However, with practice, it has become my necessary time to reconnect with my highest self. It is only from this place of balanced connectedness that I feel more able to care for myself and engage in life and all of the messiness that often life can bring. I also want to add that reaching out to a therapist or psychiatrist to work through uncomfortable feelings can be very helpful as well. We are working every day to attenuate the negative stigma that sometimes people feel about reaching out for mental health needs. However, I encourage you to do so if it feels right to you. Our team at Modern Minds and Synchronicity look at mental health as advocating for your own health and wellness. And we do our best to meet each person where they're at and lead them to the highest version of themselves. The last thing that I want to mention as a form of self-compassion is that of forgiveness. Not just forgiveness of self, but also forgiveness of others. We can be certain that holding on to resentment and anger can cause serious health problems, chronic stress, anxiety, and depression. One of the greatest gifts that you can give to yourself is to let go of anger and resentment toward others with the understanding that this is a gift for yourself. In letting go of these negative emotions, you open space in your heart for more love and more kindness. Although the list is endless, there are numerous ways in which we can slow down and engage in self-care that will allow us to be the best version of ourselves. In my clinical work, I work to help each person identify what their own list of energy rechargers are so that we know exactly what they need to do when life gets complicated or when they are feeling particularly bad about themselves. Every person is unique in what brings them back into a place of balance where they can look at themselves and others with love and kindness. Exploring what might work for you is an important part of this process. as what we know for sure is that trying to make that list when you are simultaneously feeling sad or low is much more difficult. So now let's talk a little bit about life challenges and life transitions and how self-compassion can help us through. Often we just power through these challenges without giving any thought to how we are caring for ourselves through these difficult times. Although the list of life transitions and challenges that we all go through is endless, some of the more common ones that we all experience are losses, relationships, careers, children, both being born and going off to school, big moves, job changes, financial challenges, and even the changes in our bodies due to illness, aging, or hormonal changes. And for our younger generations, think of how many challenging transitions that they have with friends and academics and social media. Imagine what life would be like if we could teach our children at a young age how to go inward and find peace and power through self-love as they go through challenging times. But all of these life transitions are made easier with self-love, as proven through research. For example, regarding school challenges, a 2011 study conducted by the University of California, the researchers found that participants who practiced self-compassion had greater motivation to change their weaknesses and also spent more time studying for a difficult test following an initial failure. And for those who struggle with weight and negative body image, a 2012 study in body image found that those who engaged in self-compassion experienced less preoccupation with their appearance, fewer weight concerns, and a greater appreciation of their body. And who does not want a greater appreciation of their body? For those who often feel inadequate in comparison with others, as can often happen in the world of social media, a 2011 study published in the Journal of Personality Psychology Compass found that self-compassion allows one to feel good, independent of failure, perceived inadequacies and imperfections. They made the distinction that self-compassion is derived from within, whereas self-esteem often depends on external circumstances and comparisons with others. For those that are going through relationship issues, resiliency and a much greater ability to overcome adversity was found in subjects who practiced self-compassion in a study published in Psychological Science in 2011. They found that people who are kinder to themselves had improved emotional recovery after going through marital separation and divorce. And for those who struggle with mood issues, a 2007 study in the Journal of Research and Personality, researchers found that self-compassion was linked to improved mood and positive characteristics of happiness, optimism, wisdom, personal initiative, and curiosity. And lastly, a very important finding was concluded in a 2012 study that was published in Clinical Psychology Review, whereby the researchers found that those who practiced self-compassion had less mental health problems, including less psychological distress, such as anxiety and depression. They also found that having self-compassion reduced the harmful effects of stress that we just discussed earlier. And as we begin to approach the end of our time together, I thought that this might be a good opportunity to relax for a moment and try a meditation on loving kindness that you may want to practice again in your own lives as a form of self-compassion and interconnectedness. When we can learn to send love to ourselves and even to those who may have hurt us, our hearts can open to greater peace. I invite you to close your eyes and just relax and listen to the sound of my voice with this beautiful, peaceful music. Become comfortable in the chair, sitting with a relaxed, straight posture. Gently close your eyes, settling into awareness of your body and of your breath, healing into your body right now, noticing what's here right now. Open yourself to whatever is to be experienced in your body in this moment. Connect to your breath. Notice the wave-like movements of your belly. In this practice, we're going to we all have within us this natural capacity for loving kindness, friendship that is unconditional, and open, and gentle, and supportive. Loving kindness is a natural opening of a compassionate heart to ourselves and to others. It's a wish that everyone be happy. We begin with developing loving kindness toward ourselves, allowing our hearts to open. Now allow yourself to remember and open up to your basic needs. You might remember times you have been kind or generous. You might recall your natural desire to be happy and to not suffer. If acknowledging your own goodness is difficult, look at yourself through the eyes of someone who loves you. What does that person love about you? Or you may recall the unconditional love felt from a beloved pet. It may help to use the imagination and to picture yourself as a young child standing before you, perhaps 4 or 5 years of age, and that allows tender feelings of kindness to flow more easily. And as you experience this love Notice how you feel in your body. Maybe you feel some warmth or heat in your face, a smile, a sense of expansiveness. This is loving kindness, a natural feeling that is accessible to all of us at all times. Resting with this feeling of open, unconditional love for a few moments, letting yourself bask in the energy of loving kindness. Taking it in and breathing it out, inviting feelings of peace and acceptance. So beginning now to wish yourself well by extending words of loving kindness to yourself. I'll be offering as guidance the phrases that I've chosen to use in my own practice, but you're invited to alter these phrases and choose whatever words express your wishes of loving kindness towards yourself and others. And now, offering these words in your mind for yourself. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be held in loving kindness. May I feel connected and calm. May I accept myself just as I am. May I be happy. May I know the natural joy of being alive. Now, allow your awareness to open out in all directions, towards yourself, towards a dear one, towards a neutral person and a difficult person, and of all beings, humans and animals, living everywhere, living in richness, poverty, war, peace, hunger, abundance, aware of all the joys and sorrows that all beings experience. And now, bringing this practice to a close by coming back to extend kindness to yourself, sitting for a moment and basking in the energy of loving kindness that I hope has been generated here. As we slowly open our eyes and return to the room, I hope that if even for a moment, I hope that you were able to experience some relaxation and meaningful reflection with this meditation. So in summary, I hope that I have helped you to see that self-compassion is not selfish. Focusing on your own well-being allows you to be your healthiest, most balanced, and highest functioning version of yourself. When we are willing to practice love and kindness of ourselves, we become overall more loving and compassionate beings in general. Therefore, all the roles that we play in life become more meaningful and fulfilling and we are able to be more compassionate, vulnerable, and invested in a life of love and meaning. In the words of David White, one of my favorite authors, self-compassion is not only a form of faith in the unique way each of us is made for the world, it is also a test of our friendship with the hidden, unknown part of ourselves, waiting amidst the obscurity we call a self, to emerge and cast its light on the world. By following the path of self-compassion and of self-discovery, we eventually dissolve the line between loving a self and loving another. In the clear light of seeing an essence of ourselves, we come to understand something of the essence of others. What I have always known is that I want my life to be defined by love. And the belief that when life presents a question, I can let love guide me to the answer. Although I let love guide me to the answer, I was able to process and guide my life in the pursuit of helping others, I didn't know how to extend that love to myself. And I needed to learn self-compassion and the journey inward to truly learn self-love, self-forgiveness, and true connectedness with others. If you too are interested in this journey, I can tell you that Modern Minds and Synchronicity provide all of the tools for that journey and welcome you without judgment to become the best version of yourself that you choose to be. And this beautiful space where we sit at Synchronicity is full of well-researched modalities that can help you recenter and achieve health and wellness. Some of the things that we offer are a cryo chamber, cold pool, infrared sauna, massage chairs, meditation zone, and many other amazing wellness tools. And the good news is that these are all modalities that can help you to retrain your nervous system and allow for greater health, calm, and sense of well-being on your wellness journey. And in addition to these modalities, we will be offering more talks and groups on important topics like this one. And we'll also be talking about emotional healing, gratitude, courage, and vulnerability, as we know that opening ourselves more fully to these concepts can deepen our own understanding and healing. So I want to thank you again for allowing me to talk with you today. This is such a topic that is near and dear to my heart. It's important to me, it's important to all of us. And all of us need to practice self-love, especially in these uncertain times. And I want to offer, if anyone has any questions at all, please feel free to reach out to me. You can email me at holeslew, that's HOLESLEW @musc.edu if you have any questions or comments or anything that I can help with. Please feel free to reach out. So thank you again for taking this time with me tonight. I really appreciate it. I wish you all well.